Is the end near? What awaits Ukraine next? The world holds its breath. Amid constant shelling, escalations at the front, and painful losses, a surprising piece of news has emerged, one that made many wonder. Could we actually be approaching the end of this war? Former U.S. President Donald Trump, known for his bold statements, has said something analysts couldn't ignore. In the coming weeks, he plans to hold talks with Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky. The proposed venue, the United Arab Emirates. This sounds like a geopolitical bombshell. A first meeting between the three leaders since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion. A real opportunity to sit at the negotiating table, not just to discuss a ceasefire, but the actual conditions under which this war might end. But let's dig deeper. What do these negotiations mean? Why now? And why is the initiative coming from Trump? The past few weeks have been full of major geopolitical developments. Following President Biden's intense tour of Europe, where the U.S. once again reaffirmed its support for Ukraine, Trump decided to take the initiative. Let's not forget, the U.S. presidential campaign is in full swing, and Trump is fiercely fighting for votes. One of his key promises is to end the war in Ukraine within 24 hours. A bold claim that demands bold action. Clearly, it's not about peace at any cost, but a political play with stakes as high as the future of the entire continent. It's within this context that the upcoming meeting in the UAE has been floated. But why the Emirates? The UAE has maintained a neutral stance in many conflicts while also maintaining ties with both the West and Russia. It's the perfect setting for unofficial but potentially historic diplomacy. According to early reports, Trump has already held informal consultations with both sides. He wants to be the mediator. He wants to be the one to bring Putin and Zelensky to the same table. This news has sparked a wave of reactions around the world. Some say it's a bluff, others say it's a real chance. But above all, it's the first credible sign in a year that serious talks about ending the war might be back on the table. So what's really behind these talks? On one side, Putin. His army is exhausted, and his economy is suffering under heavy sanctions. He needs a victory, or at least a frozen status quo that can be spun as success at home. On the other, Ukraine, holding the line with heroic resilience, but also feeling the weight of fatigue, societal stress, and the need for a long-term plan. The third player, Trump, a politician who could not only help end the war but also turn the process into a powerful trump card in his own campaign for the White House. Is peace possible in the coming months? It's critical to understand, this war will not end with a single meeting. Even if talks in the UAE take place, they'll be just the start of a long and painful process. But the very fact that all parties are willing to talk again, that's already a huge step. Analysts point to several possible scenarios. Frozen conflict, the most realistic short-term outcome. The front stabilizes, active fighting stops, but no final political settlement is reached. It gives both sides a breather, but not peace agreement. This depends heavily on Russia's willingness to compromise and the kind of guarantees Ukraine receives. Some concessions may be made on both sides, but for Ukraine, territorial integrity and sovereignty are non-negotiable. Escalation. If talks fail, the conflict could worsen. Russia might launch new mobilizations, while the West may increase it. Yet, signs are growing that all sides are tired, not just the soldiers, but the politicians, economies, and societies, and that might be the deciding factor. Ukraine's position in these possible negotiations is not only morally strong, it is legally and politically grounded. Since the 2022 invasion, the world has acknowledged Ukraine as the victim of aggression. Hundreds of resolutions, international court rulings, sanctions against Russia, military and financial support, this all confirms the world stands with Ukraine. Now, as negotiations become a possibility, it's crucial to remember, any agreement must be rooted in international law. That means withdrawal of Russian troops, compensation, and accountability for war crimes. While Russia may not agree immediately, Ukraine has repeatedly said, no compromises, that include giving up territory. Ukrainian leadership is no stranger to dealing with the aggressor. There were talks in Istanbul in 2022, which ultimately failed due to excessive Russian demands. Since then, the situation has changed. Ukraine has become stronger militarily and diplomatically, and it has a clear peace plan. Zelensky's peace formula, which includes full withdrawal of Russian troops, restoration of territorial integrity, release of all prisoners, security guarantees for Ukraine, and international tribunal for war crimes. These are the terms on which Kyiv is willing to negotiate. Anything else would be a false peace. Meanwhile, a serious diplomatic battle is unfolding. When Trump's initiative was announced, the Biden administration withheld official support. The U.S. is internally divided in its approach to Ukraine. While support for Kyiv remains largely bipartisan, more Americans are asking, how long will this last? How much does it cost? And what comes next? Trump is capitalizing on this mood. His message is simple and effective. I'll bring both sides to peace, but at what cost? For Ukraine, the challenge is to avoid becoming a pawn in someone else's political game. To avoid a peace that is in reality a surrender. So what can Ukraine gain if the talks do happen? Time. Even a partial truce would allow Ukraine to regroup, strengthen its defense, and grow its economy. Recognition. The fact that Ukraine would sit at the table alongside Trump and Putin confirms its role as a legitimate and equal geopolitical actor. Influence. Post-war Ukraine is poised to play a central role in Europe's security architecture from NATO to the Black Sea region. Moral strength. Ukraine has the moral high ground. It didn't start this war. It's defending its homeland. Even more weary observers around the world recognize that. But there are also risks. Western pressure. If talks drag on, some in the West might push for a frozen conflict, trading land for peace. Internal division. Any hint of concessions could trigger serious rifts within Ukrainian society. Trust issues. Russia has broken every agreement before, from the Budapest Memorandum to the Minsk Accords. Why believe it now? That's why Ukraine's strategy must be clear. Yes to negotiations, no to surrender. Most military analysts agree that total victory, reclaiming all territories, including Crimea, is possible. But it will take time, resources, and unity. In 2025, the war has entered a new phase, a war of endurance. It's no longer just about weapons. It's about holding the line, keeping the economy running, and showing diplomatic resilience. Ukraine endures, Ukraine resists. And because of that, it has a real chance not just to survive but to win. Ukraine stands at the edge of historic change. Ahead lie new challenges, but also new opportunities. The key question isn't just when the war ends, but what kind of Ukraine will emerge after it. For its people, for Europe, for the world. And most importantly, can we preserve who we are, without breaking under pressure, and without losing what matters most: freedom, humanity, and strength of spirit. So what does the near future look like, if we remove emotion and look with clarity but keep faith in ourselves? Scenario 1, negotiations succeed, and a ceasefire deal is reached in 2025. It's not peace, not a final victory, but a step towards stabilization, saving lives, and building a long-term solution. Ukraine retains its principles, control over most territories, and continues integrating into NATO and the EU. Scenario 2, the war continues, but momentum shifts toward Ukraine. Russia's resources deplete, internal unrest grows, and advanced Western weapons help Ukraine liberate more land. The war goes on, but the direction is clear, toward victory. Scenario 3, Russia rejects talks or they fail. Fighting intensifies. But even then, Ukraine has the upper hand. A coordinated army, international backing, experience, unity. Each day of resistance brings Kyiv closer not to defeat, but to justice. The domestic front, how Ukraine is transforming. Equally important is what's happening inside the country. War isn't just about the front line. It's also the economy, society, culture, education, healthcare, tech, and the national psyche. And on this front, Ukraine is showing extraordinary strength. Between 2022 and 2024, Ukrainians endured shock, loss, and confusion. But by 2025, the country began to adapt, recover, and seek survival strategies. Business operates even under fire. The defense industry is growing. The IT sector continues to innovate. Education is being restored, students are learning, teachers are teaching, and volunteers are working around the clock. Civic consciousness is on the rise. Ukrainians are no longer waiting for someone else to act. They evacuate, rebuild, and fundraise on their own. This is a new type of Ukrainian society, responsible, determined, and unbreakable. The armed forces, the heart of the nation, the heroes of this war aren't abstract. They're real people facing life and death every day. Soldiers fighting without rest. medics saving lives, engineers demining fields, intelligence officers gathering critical info. The armed forces of Ukraine have become the symbol of hope and resilience. They're more than an army, they're the soul of the nation, and thanks to them, Ukraine has a chance to win with honor. By 2025, the military has grown stronger. Logistics have improved, support systems upgraded, and new tactics introduced. Drones, HIMARS, F-16s, cyber warfare, all this makes Ukraine's army one of the most formidable in Eastern Europe. The world and Ukraine. A new geopolitical order. The war has changed not just Ukraine but the world. Europe now knows that security can't be taken for granted. NATO is energized. Sweden and Finland have joined the alliance. Poland is a key hub. The Baltics lead the information front. And Ukraine is at the center of it all. No longer a bystander, but an active participant in shaping the future. And with that comes a unique opportunity not just to survive, but to lead. Above all, belief. As you watch this video, somewhere in eastern Ukraine a shell falls. Someone holds the line. Someone saves a life. Someone prays. But we are all in the same boat, all in the same fight. And our belief will shape what comes next. This war isn't about tanks, or weapons, or missiles. It's about people, hearts, truth, love for our land. The refusal to become slaves. The refusal to surrender. The refusal to break. Because Ukraine is not just a country. It's a force. It's the heart of freedom. It's home. And we won't give it up. Negotiations, even the most high-profile ones, won't change everything overnight. The war may last longer than we want. But it will end. And it will end in victory. Not instantly. Not without pain. Not without loss. But with honor. With truth. And with our Ukraine free, strong, and independent. The end is near. We are almost there. All that remains is to hold on and win.